Ryan was a young man with big dreams. He wanted to become successful, live a better life, and make his parents proud. Every night before sleeping, he imagined himself standing on a big stage, people clapping for him, and his name shining in the lights. But every morning when the alarm rang, his dreams went back to sleep. Just like him, Ryan had a plan. He had written it on paper, step by step, day by day. This time I will not give up, he promised himself again and again. But the truth was different. His plan looked perfect on paper, but his mood never matched it. If he felt sleepy, he told himself, "It's okay, I'll start tomorrow." If it was raining outside, he said, "Maybe next week." If he felt lazy, he convinced himself, "I'm not in the mood right now." And slowly, those tomorrows became weeks and weeks became months. Ryan spent hours watching motivational videos and reading quotes. He felt inspired for a few minutes, but soon that fire inside him faded away. He wanted success without effort, results without discipline. Deep down, he knew what was missing: consistency. But his mood always won the fight against his plan. Every morning, his mother would wake him up. "Ryan, get up. You said you'll start studying early today." He would reply from under the blanket, "Just 5 more minutes, Mom." But those 5 minutes always turned into an hour. His father used to look at him quietly. He didn't shout or argue anymore. He had seen Ryan make hundreds of promises before and break them all. The disappointment in his father's eyes hurt Ryan, but not enough to make him change. In his free time, Ryan loved to dream. He dreamed about success, cars, fame, and respect. But he never realized that dreaming is easy. Doing is hard. Sometimes, late at night when everyone was asleep, he would look at his notebook full of goals. He would feel a strange sadness. He wanted to be proud of himself, but he wasn't. He knew he was losing time, but his mind kept finding new excuses. One evening, while scrolling through social media, Ryan saw a post that said, "Discipline is stronger than motivation." He stopped scrolling for a second. Those words stayed in his head, but only for a while. The next day, he was back to his old routine, lazy, unmotivated, and waiting for the perfect mood to start. He didn't know that life was about to teach him a hard lesson, one that would change everything. But for now, Ryan was still a dreamer, not a doer. A boy full of plans, controlled by his moods. Days turned into weeks, and Ryan's plan was still resting on his table, covered with dust. His notebook, once filled with excitement, now looked like an old memory, a reminder of what he could be but never became. One morning, Ryan woke up late again. The sunlight was already entering his room, and his phone was full of notifications. His exam was scheduled for that day. It was an important one, the kind that could change his career. He looked at the time. He was already 2 hours late. He sat on the edge of his bed thinking, should I go now? Maybe they'll still let me in. But his lazy mind whispered, what's the point? You're already late. Try next time. And so, he didn't go. When his father came home in the evening, he asked calmly, Ryan, how was the exam? Ryan looked down. I didn't go. His father didn't shout. He didn't show anger. He just nodded slowly and said, Son, your dreams don't care about your mood. The world doesn't stop because you don't feel like moving. Those words hit Ryan harder than any punishment. He sat quietly while his father walked away. It was the first time Ryan felt truly ashamed. Not because someone scolded him, but because he knew it was true. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing his father's voice echoing in his head. Your dreams don't care about your mood. He looked around his room, the unmade bed, the half-read books, the unfinished notes. Everything screamed incomplete. His life had become a collection of half-started things. The next morning, Ryan tried to wake up early. For the first time, he fought against his mood. He sat at his desk and opened his book. But within 15 minutes, his mind said, I'll do this later. And once again, he lost the fight. He started to realize that his biggest enemy was not time, not luck, not even his situation. It was his own mood. Days passed. His friends began sharing their results online. One of them scored high marks, another got an internship, and someone even posted a picture holding a certificate. Ryan congratulated them, but deep inside he felt a heavy emptiness. He wanted to be proud of himself, but all he felt was regret. One evening he went to the roof of his house. The sky was orange and quiet. He looked far into the distance and whispered, I keep saying I'll start, But when? That question stayed in his mind for days. It followed him everywhere, to bed, to breakfast, to his thoughts. Something inside him was slowly waking up. He didn't know it yet, but life was preparing him for a moment that would shake him to his core. A moment that would finally make him choose between comfort and commitment. Ryan's days started to feel empty. The excitement he once had for his dreams was fading. His notebook stayed closed on the table and dust started to cover it again, just like before. Every day felt the same. He woke up late, scrolled through his phone, watched random videos and promised himself that he would start tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. Slowly, Ryan's friends began moving ahead in life. One of his college friends started a small online business. Another one got a scholarship for higher studies. Their posts filled social media. Smiling faces, new beginnings, proud captions. Ryan looked at them and something inside him broke a little. He didn't feel jealous, he felt left behind. He started avoiding his friends' calls. He didn't want to explain why he was still figuring things out. His parents didn't say much anymore. His mother only asked softly, "Are you okay?" And he would just smile weakly and say, "Yeah, I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. Every night, when the world went quiet, Ryan's mind got louder. He started asking himself hard questions. Why can't I stick to my plan? Why do I give up so easily? Why can't I be like them? He began to realize that his mood wasn't just controlling his actions, it was controlling his life. The more he tried to escape reality, the heavier it felt. He watched movies, played games, and stayed up late. But no distraction could silence the voice inside him. The voice that kept saying, "You are wasting your time." One night, Ryan looked in the mirror. His eyes looked tired. His face showed no confidence, no spark, and only regret. He whispered to his reflection, "What happened to me? I used to dream so big it was painful to admit." But he had turned into the kind of person he never wanted to be. Someone who talked about success but never worked for it. A few days later, he met one of his old school friends at a cafe. His friend was wearing a company ID card around his neck. He talked excitedly about his new job, his goals, his growth. Ryan smiled and listened, but deep inside he felt small. On the way back home, he walked slowly through the empty streets. The streetlights flickered and the wind was cold. He kept hearing one line again and again in his head. "Son, your dreams don't care about your mood." By the time he reached home, his heart felt heavy. He went straight to his room and sat in silence. That night, he finally understood. Success doesn't come to those who wait for the right mood. It comes to those who act even when they don't feel like it. But Ryan still didn't know that the biggest shock of his life was just around the corner. A moment that would hit him so hard, it would force him to wake up for real. It was a cold, quiet night. Ryan sat on his bed, staring at his phone screen. He was scrolling through videos, trying to escape his thoughts. His life felt stuck. Every day looked the same, every dream looked further away. Outside, the wind blew softly, and the city lights flickered through his window. He felt tired, not just physically, but deep inside. His mind whispered, "Maybe this is who I am. Maybe I'll never change." He didn't know that night was about to change everything. At around midnight, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. When he opened it, his heart froze. It said, "Ryan, it's me, David's brother. David met with an accident. He's in the hospital." David was Ryan's best friend, the one who always pushed him to stay focused, the one who never gave up on his goals. Ryan dropped his phone in shock and ran out of his house without thinking twice. At the hospital, the smell of medicine filled the air. The lights were bright and cold. Ryan saw David lying on a hospital bed, pale and weak, his arm wrapped in bandages. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. "David, what happened?" he asked with a trembling voice. David smiled faintly. "I was going to my early morning job. I slipped on the road, but I'm okay now." Ryan sat beside him quietly. After a few minutes, David looked at him and said softly, "You know, Ryan, I was so tired this morning. I didn't even feel like going. But I told myself, follow your plan, not your mood." Those words hit Ryan like a storm. He stared at David, speechless. David continued, "If I had listened to my mood, I'd still be sleeping at home. But even this accident can't stop me from trying again." Ryan felt something break inside him. Not sadness, but realization. David, lying on that hospital bed, had more strength, more discipline, and more purpose than he ever had. When Ryan left the hospital, the sky was dark, but his mind was awake for the first time in years. He walked home slowly, the street empty, the world silent. Inside his head, David's words kept repeating, "Follow your plan, not your mood." When he reached his room, he stood in front of his wall. He grabbed a black marker and wrote those words in big letters. He stared at them for a long time. That night, he made a promise to himself. No more waiting, no more excuses. The next morning, before the sun rose, Ryan was already awake. He didn't feel motivated. He didn't feel excited. But he didn't care. He whispered to himself, "From today, I follow my plan." It was the start of something new, the beginning of the man Ryan was always meant to be. The next morning, the alarm rang at 5 a.m. For the first time in years, Ryan didn't hit the snooze button. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. His body felt heavy. His mind whispered, "Sleep a little more." But then his eyes caught the words on the wall, "Follow your plan, not your mood." He stared at that sentence for a few seconds, and something inside him refused to quit. He got up. Ryan started small. He made his bed, brushed his teeth, and went for a short run. The streets were quiet, the air was cold, and his legs hurt after just a few minutes. But he didn't stop. For the first time, he wasn't listening to his feelings. He was listening to his plan. After his run, he sat with a notebook and wrote his schedule for the day: study, exercise, reading, and some time for rest. He didn't want perfection anymore. He just wanted progress. The first few days were hard. His mind kept finding excuses. "You're tired. You can do this later. You've done enough for today." But each time those thoughts came, Ryan whispered back, "You're not in control anymore." It was a battle between his comfort and his commitment. And this time he was winning, slowly. At night, when he went to bed, his body felt sore, but his heart felt calm. For the first time, he was proud. Not because he achieved something big, but because he finally did what he said he would do. Days turned into weeks. The changes were small, but real. His focus improved, his energy grew, and his confidence started to return. He still had bad days. Days when he didn't feel like doing anything. But now he showed up anyway. One morning, while running, he saw the sunrise breaking through the clouds. The sky turned orange and gold. He stopped for a moment, breathing deeply. A small smile appeared on his face. He whispered, "This is what peace feels like." His parents noticed the difference. His mother saw him studying early in the morning, and his father silently smiled for the first time in a long while. Ryan wasn't chasing motivation anymore. He was building discipline. He realized that success isn't about feeling ready. It's about showing up again and again, even when you don't want to. He began finishing tasks he once left halfway. His notes were organized, his mind was clearer, and his room, once messy, now reflected order and purpose. Each day was a small victory. Each sunrise was a reminder. Your mood changes, but your plan remains. Ryan was finally becoming someone different. Not the dreamer who waited, but the doer who acted. The fire inside him was back, not burning wild like before, but steady, controlled, and unstoppable. Weeks turned into months, and Ryan's life started to look completely different. The same boy who once woke up late and made excuses was now up before sunrise every day. His room was neat, his notebook full of completed tasks, and his eyes, they had focus again. He wasn't perfect, but he was consistent. And that made all the difference. At first, nobody noticed. His friends still thought he was the same Ryan who gave up easily. But quietly, he was changing, day by day, habit by habit. One morning, while sitting at his study table, Ryan realized something important. He hadn't felt motivated in weeks, but he didn't need to. His habits had become stronger than his moods. He smiled and whispered to himself, "This is what discipline feels like." He started to see small results. His focus improved. His grades slowly got better. His teachers began to notice his effort. Even his parents looked happier. His father once walked past his room early in the morning and saw Ryan studying with full attention. He didn't say a word, but his eyes said everything: pride, relief, and love. Ryan's confidence began to return. He wasn't comparing himself to others anymore. He had learned that real success isn't about being faster. It's about being consistent when others quit. Whenever his mood tried to pull him down, he fought back. On cold mornings when his body didn't want to move, he reminded himself, the old Ryan would have stayed in bed. But the new Ryan shows up. Soon his discipline began to inspire people around him. His friends noticed the change and asked, "Bro, what happened to you? You look so focused now." Ryan just smiled and said, "I stopped waiting for the right mood." He started helping others with their studies and shared his story with honesty. He told them how he used to quit, how his moods controlled him, and how one sentence changed everything. Follow your plan, not your mood. For the first time in his life, Ryan felt alive. Not because he achieved something big, but because he was living with purpose. Even on hard days when things didn't go perfectly, he didn't lose control. He reminded himself, the plan stays the same. My mood doesn't decide my actions. Months later, when the results were announced, Ryan's name was among the top scorers. He couldn't believe it. His eyes filled with tears, not because of the marks, but because he knew what it took to get there. Every early morning, every small fight with himself, every moment of discipline. That day, he finally understood the truth. Discipline builds success. Mood only builds excuses. Ryan had finally become the person he once dreamed of being, not because he waited for motivation, but because he chose consistency over comfort. Months later, Ryan stood backstage holding a small piece of paper in his hand. He was about to give his first motivational talk at a youth event. The same boy who once hid behind excuses was now about to speak in front of hundreds of people. His hands trembled, but his heart was calm. As his name was called, Ryan walked toward the stage. The bright lights hit his face and the crowd clapped loudly. He took a deep breath and smiled. He began softly, his voice filled with emotion. "A few years ago, I was a boy who always had plans but never action. I had big dreams but small discipline. I waited for the right time, the right mood, the right feeling. And because of that, I lost years." The audience listened quietly. Some nodded, others looked down, thinking of their own lives. Ryan continued, "I used to think motivation would save me. But motivation is like the weather, it changes every day. One day you feel strong, the next day you feel weak. If you live by your mood, you will never build your dream." He paused, then looked up at the crowd. "One night, a close friend of mine met with an accident. That night, he told me something that changed my life. Follow your plan, not your mood." The hall was silent. Every eye was on him. Ryan smiled gently. "From that day, I stopped waiting for motivation. I woke up early. I worked when I didn't feel like it. I pushed myself when my mind said stop. And slowly, everything changed. Not because I was smarter, but because I was consistent." He pointed toward the audience and said, "You all have plans. You all have dreams. But your mood, that's the real test. Your dreams don't care if you're tired, sad, or lazy. They only care if you show up." The audience began to clap softly, inspired by every word. Ryan raised his voice slightly, his tone strong and full of belief. "Stop waiting for the perfect day. There's no perfect day. There's only today. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to start." He smiled and ended with the same line that began his journey. "Follow your plan, not your mood. Because feelings fade, but discipline stays." The hall erupted in applause. People stood up, cheering for him. Ryan looked at the crowd, and for a moment, he saw his past self, the lazy dreamer, the one who almost gave up. He smiled softly and whispered under his breath, "We did it." As he walked off the stage, he realized something powerful. Success isn't about changing the world first. It's about changing yourself first. That night, as the lights went out and the crowd disappeared, Ryan knew his story had just begun. And somewhere in the silence, his father's voice echoed again, "Son, your dreams don't care about your mood.